landslide victory. The ruling CPIM there has come back in West Bengal for a record 7th time. This time, though, the red victory coming under the leadership of a reformist Buddhadev Bhattacharya. The left front had contested in a total of 290 out of the 294 assembly seats. In the outgoing assembly, it had a total of 199. This time, it's gone up to 233. The only major setback, really, for the left front came when State Labour Minister and former Acting Chief Minister Mohammad Amin lost to Abdul Mullah of the Congress. The Trinamool Congress-led Paschim Banga Ganatatrik Front had fielded candidates in all the 294 seats, and they arguably have turned out to be the biggest losers in this round of elections. And this massive mandate for the left front in West Bengal has now put it in a rather historic and a rather enviable position. After 29 years in power, it's now set to rule the state for another 5 years. Well, we spoke to CPIM State Secretary Biman Bose on the reasons for the left's uninterrupted run in West Bengal.
What is the secret of your success? What is the secret?
The secret that people, they feel that we are the good friend of them. And the opposition, they are irresponsible. They just compare election, which is a political battle, with cricket game. The people, those who compare election with cricket game, this is not one-day match. This is a 5-day match.
Not a one-day match, but a 5-day match. Biman Bose, relatively a happy man today. And why not? It's been a record victory for the left front. 7th consecutive term, almost 30 years in power. But what sort of impact is this going to have on the left Congress equations here at the centre? What sort of an impact is this going to have on brand Buddha of politics? Let's try and get a perspective on this from two very special guests who join us here in the studio. Abhishek Singhvi, the spokesperson of the Congress Party, and Mr. Gurudas Das Gupta from the Communist Party of India. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Mr. Singhvi, if I were to put it simply, it's a day when both of you can rejoice. You can actually congratulate each other because you seem to have won fairly well because your common enemy, the BJP, has been almost wiped out in all these 5 states.
Well, on an All India scorecard, I think we've done exceedingly well, and quite frankly, even beyond the general sort of feeling and expectation. We're very close to making a government in Assam. We've done wonderfully well in Tamil Nadu, very well in Pondicherry. West Bengal is a disappointment in that our improvement is not as much as expected. But quite frankly, I think nobody ever expected the Congress to be anywhere near government formation. So it's not that sense of dejection or loss. So I'd really say that our scorecard is negative only in one state, Kerala.
Would you this result in West Bengal as an endorsement for Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya and the economic policies that he's following, which you could draw as a consequence?
Well, frankly, to an extent you're right. To an extent, I think Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya in particular, and I think one must concede that he's been, even in that party, a mascot, a symbol. He's done exceedingly well because not only has he overcome anti-incumbency, but he's actually increased during anti-incumbency. So that's quite an achievement. I think, yes, he has followed a more centrist path, a path which is pragmatic. And well, all I can say is that on a lot of the issues, we hope and trust that the left and us will go on that path towards nation building at the centre.
Is that something that you're amiable to, Mr. Das Gupta? Because it clearly seems to be an endorsement of the policies undertaken by Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya over the last 5 years. Is that something that you're willing to concede to Mr. Singh?
That is how Congress should look at it. To me, the election result in West Bengal, in Kerala, and in other parts, let me be very categorical. The economic policy of Congress government on our support has received a setback, undoubtedly. Let us not go into numbers. Numbers always count. If you talk of numbers, you have lost the number in Assam. If you talk of number in Tamil Nadu, last time TMC and Congress were separate. They had almost the same number of seats. Now Congress and TMC has merged. Nothing has improved, maybe one more seat. Therefore, if we speak of number, there is nothing to be very elated of in the election result. On the other hand, as a left, I believe that the election result in West Bengal could not have been so massive if the people had not believed that the left is the most potent and consistent political force to fight the anti-people economic policies started by BJP, continued by Congress.
But what about the endorsement for Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya and his economic policies? Isn't it also an endorsement?
Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya does not represent or does not speak of a policy which is different from the policy of the left front and of the communists.
Isn't that much
Today,
more moderate than what you follow here in
That
Delhi?
is how you describing, because it suits your purpose. Liberalization, globalization and privatization is never endorsed by the left front, and Mr. Buddhadev Bhattacharya is not beyond the left front. The workers and the...
He's
yes.
been bringing in foreign investment to the state. He's been bringing in big ticket industrial investment.
We had never been opposed to foreign direct investment. We are for foreign direct investment if it generates employment and creates productivity. We had never been opposed to it. Not in the past, not in the present, not in the future. That is not the issue. Economic reform has a connotation. Economic reform I see in the way the Congress government sees. Economic reform means reform of the labor policy. The bill is pending. Government has been discussed. Please. Economic reform, as I understand, is an endorsement of the policy of the capitalists for hire and fire. Economic policy, as I see in Haryana, economic, which is a Congress ruled state, economic policy as I see in Punjab, economic policy as I see in Maharashtra, and also in BJP ruled state are almost the same.
You've made your point, but let me get a response from you, Mr. Singhvi. Would you agree that in a sense what he's saying is Mr. Bhattacharya can
no
continue?
misunderstanding that the so-called economic reform of the Congress party is the same as the political philosophy of the leaders of the left front in West Bengal.
You've made your point.
I think on that we both agree. The economic policies of the left front in a left front government are obviously different from the economic policy and approaches of the Congress. That is why we have a CMP. A CMP
so they can
is
have one
supposed
set
to
of rules in
minimize.
Kolkata and one set of rules in Delhi, and
That's a fact.
you'll have no problem with that.
No, it's not a question of problem. It's a political reality. That's why you have a CMP. A CMP
Why don't you call their bluff?
A CMP pools the pools the differences. It brings together common areas. The real point is, and we go a little bit away from West Bengal, let me talk about the numbers he mentioned. You forget that in Assam, in 30 years, in 3 decades, there has never been a repeat government. For a government to have come so close to victory,
we'll come back after the break and discuss
numbers.
Assam. We'll also be joined by the incumbent Chief Minister of Assam.
Tamil Nadu again, the figure is very interesting because whenever the Congress has joined, either with the AIDMK or with the DMK, normally that party has gone towards victory, and this happened again this time.
All right, just hang on for a moment. We'll be back after this break. We'll discuss Assam. Like we said, we'll also be joined by Mr. Gogoi, who seems to be a relatively happy man, at least towards the evening, not so much in the morning, because he's managed to hit at least 52 seats, we're told, and a fair degree of independents have also committed their support for the Congress party. So it looks like the Congress is just sniffing distance away from sensing power in Guwahati. Mr. Gogoi, we could see some pictures of you. We'll come back to you after this break. Stay with us. You're watching Pole Wall 2006. Our special focus on Assam is next. Welcome back to Pole Wall 2006. The most decisive, the most closely fought round of elections this time in this round of state assembly elections has been in Assam, where the ruling Congress is now within sniffing distance, but they had to fret and sulk all morning because they were quite a distance away from power. But it's now surged way ahead of its rival, the main rival, the Assam Gana Parishad, there in the state. And this even before all the results are yet to come. And remember, traditionally the Congress has done well in Upper Assam, and we're still awaiting final results from many of those constituencies in Upper Assam. Chief Minister Tarun Gogoi, who will be joining us on this show, well, he's showing all the signs of a man who's comfortably placed. This is how it's currently placed. This is a combination of trends and results. 51 is where the Congress is currently. That's 20 down from last time, remember. The AGP is 28, up 7 from last time. But the big bother for the Congress has been the new entrant, the AUDF, the Assam United Democratic Front, which has taken a large chunk of the Muslim votes away from the Congress party. All right, let's get a perspective on which way Assam is swinging. Like we said, the Congress is within sniffing distance there in Guwahati. Mr. Gogoi now joins us from there. Mr. Gogoi, do you think that you'll be relatively happy now in the evening than you were in the morning, because you now know that you're just about 10 seats short of a majority?
No, from the very beginning, I have been confident that we will be able to form the ministry, and there is no doubt about it. With our alliance with the Bodo group, they own about 11 seats, another one also. So we have already declared 52 seats. So we've already reached the required majority, and definitely we are going to form the ministry.
Where do you go looking forward to this extra support of about 10 seats that you need? You mentioned the Bodo group. What about some independents who I believe have already committed support to you?
Bodo group. Now, is already independents, another 10 are there. But with the Bodo support, with that group, we had the pre-election alliance. They have the required number 11, they have already elected. They have another one independent, 12 seats. Our already 52 seats has already declared elected. Another seat we are likely to get also.
But don't you believe, Mr. Gogoi, somewhere down the line that this is a mandate against your government, because as a single party you've not been able to get majority, you're down at least about 20 seats in this round. Morally, this is a defeat.
How could we morally defeat? Never in the history of Assam also. Assam history is different from other. It is a state full of insurgency. It is an economic backward state also. So many problems. And for the last 30 years, after 1972, no party comes to power consecutively twice. So definitely it is a good news for the Congress that the people of Assam, and as I made earlier mentioned also, we have an alliance with another group also. The people have voted us back to power also. Yes, there is a shortage of seat on our own strength. Anti-incumbency factor is there.
All right, we'll just come back to you in a moment, in a moment, Mr. Gogoi, and talk about the next big issue, whether you'll become Chief Minister, but that's in a moment. Let me get a quick word from both of you. You had put up a pre-poll pact with the AGP in Assam. It seemed to have worked to an extent. They've managed to get about 28 seats, the alliance as a whole. But would you now concede defeat to the Congress, in Assam at least?
Why should we? We are not been in power. And AGP had a split. A section of AGP had gone out. And we did not combine with opportunist forces. Neither we had gone to find out any hidden contact with the communal forces. We were on our own, and there is a new combination which is coming up. We have got a considerable number of seats. What happens today is not the way what we shall work for tomorrow.
Are you worried that with the emergence of this new party, the AUDF, which is taking away a substantial chunk of the Muslim votes?
Let me make 2 points. As far as the AUDF is concerned, a section of that, and I repeat, not the whole of it, but a section of that, has propagated and canvassed a strongly, overtly, openly communal line, with which you don't agree. I think that's a cause for concern for whichever government is in Assam.
But they're taking away a lot of your votes. So
well, votes is one part, but votes on what plank? If on an openly communal plank we don't agree with it, it doesn't matter, we'll fight them. And I think it's a unfortunate development which must be nipped in the bud, because a section of it has openly canvassed on communal religious lines, which we don't agree with that, because the Congress stands whichever religion for secular purposes. But the second point is very important, which everybody is missing. Mr. Gogoi deserves to be congratulated for the simple reason that he has already won a majority, because a majority must be counted on the basis of a pre-poll declared alliance, and a pre-poll declared alliance is already beyond 60. So you don't even have to go to the independents. There's a lot of 37 there from which we can get more.
All right, there are about 11 in
yes,
that 37.
but then already with the pre-poll declared alliance with the Bodos, we are well close to or beyond the majority mark.
All right, Mr. Gogoi, final word from you. Yes, you are near the majority or beyond it, but the big question is, will you become Chief Minister?
It will the party, newly elected party, they will decide who will be the next Chief Minister.
The High Command's not deciding this time, are they?
No. High Command send the observer here. My General Secretary is already here, Digvijay Singh. Tomorrow, Maisina Kirwa, another observer, she is also coming. Both will discuss with the elected, our MLAs, and as per the majority supports given by the MLA, that whoever may be, he will be elected as a leader of our legislative party.
Also, a quick word, Mr. Gogoi, on an issue that Mr. Singhvi also touched upon, the emergence of this new party, the Assam United Democratic Front, on what Mr. Singhvi called an openly communal plank. How much does that worry you? Because they seem to have taken away a lot of the Muslim votes away from the Congress.
Yes, it has affected to some extent, but I am not worried. I hope that this result will give a new signal to the minority communities, those who have been misled by this group also. And that minority will also come back to us also. You will see, maybe within 2 months, you will see those who have been misled by wrong propaganda, religious propaganda, they will come back to us.
All right, so you believe you can give a stable and a peaceful government over the next 5 years and you will be Chief Minister?
Our party will be able to give the stable government, no doubt about it.
All right, Mr. Gogoi, I want to congratulate you once again because you've managed to buck a trend which has been continuing since 1972, like you pointed out. One alliance and then another one. Assam has never re-elected the same party back to power. This is perhaps the first time it's happening since 1972. We'll take another break here on Pole Vault. When we come back, we'll shift focus back once again to Bengal and chat up with both our gentlemen guests here in the studio on just how this is going to impact the equations here at the centre between the Congress and the left. That's on the other side of this break. Keep watching this special edition of Pole Vault 2006. Welcome back to Pole Vault 2006. If I can put it this way, the biggest winners in this round of elections have been the left parties. They've managed to retain Bengal, come back to power in Kerala and of course play an important role in Tamil Nadu. How is this going to impact relations here in Delhi between these two partners? Abhishek Manu Singhvi, are you worried that you have to now deal with a more assertive, more combative Mr. Dasgupta?
No, I think it's a mixed bag. We have, of course, fought the elections in West Bengal strongly, openly against them, and indeed in Kerala. And we are disappointed, in particular in Kerala. I don't think West Bengal, the disappointment is the same because, quite frankly, we never expected a government formation. So to that extent, there is despondency and there is sadness. But certainly, there is a flip side to it. We are partners in the centre, and without giving them an inch in the polls, I think if both partners in the centre have done well, and I use the word partnership a little more loosely. I know they're not part of the government, but they are partners in a different sense in the centre. If both partners have been strengthened overall by these elections, I think it's a win-win for the UPA. But that's an aspect which has to be considered.
I mean, they've won more than you, and therefore that's only going to make them more emboldened.
I don't think that's quite true. You can't have relative degrees of winning. I think that if you see the overall scenario, the Congress has done exceedingly well. And certainly the left has done well. And this is a remarkable thing which must emphasize. Both have done well, not so much to detract from either. Because they have got both Kerala and West Bengal. I think we've done very well in Assam, bucking the trend. We won Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, where we were always part of an alliance. And there were doomsday reports in both Assam and Tamil Nadu some days ago, some weeks ago. West Bengal is not really our bastion. So net, I think Kerala is a loss for the Congress.
All right, Mr. Dasgupta, is this going to make you more assertive, more combative?
Or should I agree with him? He has his own way of looking at things. If he finds pleasure in finding that the Congress has done commendably well, why should I encroach upon his leisure? Let him leave in peace. That's not the point. Point is very important and very strong. Protest of the people against the economic policies and so-called reform has led to this massive victory as one of the factors in Bengal and Kerala, and also helped us to become more vibrant and resurgent in the country.
So is it going to be a more assertive, more combative left here in Delhi?
No, assertive we had been earlier also. Yesterday when the results didn't come out, we had been too much assertive of the petroleum ministry. We had bluntly told them we don't agree even for a marginal rise in the petroleum price of the petroleum products.
So now it's going to make you more emboldened.
We are always emboldened because we feel that we are representing the cause of the people.
All right.
Emboldened we are, and more emboldened we shall be because of the election result. That is not the truth. Our commitment for the people makes us emboldened to become more resurgent even in a difficult situation.
All right, we look forward to some more firecrackers between these two parties. Thanks very much for joining us, Mr. Singhvi and also Mr. Dasgupta. So that's how it's going to